Good morning, church. It's Jordan, and I'm here with our Monday morning devotional video. I hope all of you were encouraged and feel a greater purpose behind our gatherings as a result of yesterday's teaching. We have a lot of different opportunities to get together every week, and I hope that you do join us, and you join us with the intention to really pursue the type of unity that Jesus prayed for and asked God for in John 17. This morning, we're going to continue in our Forms of Worship series that we've been doing over the last several weeks. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about why we worship with bodily expression. Why it is that we clap, why we raise our hands, why we kneel, why we sometimes jump or dance, why we kind of sway or two-step or whatever it is that you do during worship. And there's a few different reasons that I want to have that conversation. And we'll spend some time looking at some specific forms of bodily expression that are talked about in the Bible and what they can mean for us today. I think the first reason that I want to have this conversation is I think it's really helpful for us to contemplate what we're doing and why. I never want our worship services to be empty. I never want them to be a form or a ritual. When we raise our hands, when we clap our hands, when we do things without thinking about why we're doing them, they have this pattern of ritual that really does nothing for God. And so I want us to consider why it is that we worship the way we worship. And I want you and myself, when we come together to worship or we're in a time of worship, to consider what it is that we're doing with our body and why we're doing it. What are we trying to express to God? I think that will provide us with a greater purpose and investment into our worship together. I think it will also be a more worthy expression of our praise to God when we are really investing in our worship in a way that is thoughtful and is considering what it is that we're doing and what it means to us. All right, so let's jump in. We're going to go to Mark 12. We're going to go to verse 29. Jesus answered, "The most important is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." So what I want to specifically focus on in this little snippet of scripture is verse 30. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight these specifically is, this verse specifically in the conversation on forms of worship, is I don't know that there are many situations outside of our worship service where we really are coordinating or have the opportunity to so clearly coordinate all of our different aspects of self in a way that we are really devoting them to loving God. So Jesus says the great commandment is to love your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. There's sort of this group of four that he calls out. And very rarely when we get into a situation when we are worshiping God, are we really expressing in all four of those realms what we're doing? You know, sometimes in my head I can have worship that is very thoughtful and it is mindful. It is focused on my love of God in that way. Other times it is very emotional. It comes from my heart. Other times I can worship him with my strength, with my labor, and the things that I invest into our church community. It can be an expression of love. But our times of worship and praise together, really, if you think about what you're doing with your body, if you're contemplating it, if you're thinking about how do I express my emotion, how do I express the status of my soul, how do I express my thoughts, how do I express with my strength my feelings towards God in the midst of this time of worship, really the different things that we do take on a whole lot more meaning. And really, I think they are one of the best ways that we can express all of those things simultaneously. If you read through scripture, and we'll do this again in the next couple of weeks, and look at sort of the ways that the Bible talks about what people do during worship, you'll often see that it is verbal. They are sort of expressing something. There's often an emotional response. There's often a spiritual response from their soul. And there's often some physical demonstration, something that relies on their strength to express their praise and their worship of God through their bodies. And so that's my challenge for us. As we come together, or as you go into any other worship gathering or in a time of worship, consider what you can do with your body that is going to be an expression with your strength of your praise for God. Now, pair that with your heart, pair that with your soul, pair that with your mind, and bind those things together. Be purposeful in your time of worship. And I think what you'll find is that you have a very strong awareness of God's acceptance of that praise and his appreciation of that kind of praise, the desire that he has for that kind of praise. And I think, frankly, it's often when we see and hear most from God is when we're really sort of putting ourselves into a position of whole devotion to him. So I hope that's encouraging for you. Again, we'll be back together on midweek this week. And then we have our Sunday service next week at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we have prayer at 6. But if you do have a chance to consider what you're doing in your bodily expression with your strength in your time of praise, do it. Be purposeful in that. Pair that and unite that with what is happening elsewhere in heart and soul and mind, and see how God responds. I love you all. Looking forward to being back together with you this coming week, and excited for our time together. Bye.